Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Excited to be here today and to watch the Democrats' death spiral. I mean, these guys are in the throes of a collapse on an epic scale. Epic. I mean, today we've got a couple of the Democrats out there that are literally in the media publicly trying to claim that Trump is promoting slavery. Are you serious? I mean, listen, we have crossed the threshold of sensibility. We've crossed the threshold of credibility. The Democrats they've totally lost their minds. They have collapsed, and they've collapsed on such an epic level that it's mind blowing. Um, it's wonderful to see. I mean, if you're me and you see some of these, because the Democrat Party's gone so far to the left that they're not salvageable. They're completely nuts. They've lost it. They're pro-communist, pro-socialist. They're just garbage. But there is an issue here, and part of that is that as the Republicans become a bigger and bigger tent, there is an unintended consequence, right? So a lot of these Democrats that are moderate have come to the Republican side. But what that does is that also waters down the Republican Party a little bit. So for those of us that tend to lean a little more conservative, well, that's going to be a concern. That's something that we're going to have to really push for, right? The good news is I think a vast majority of Americans can come together on certain policies that shouldn't really be political. MAGA is the point, right? We all want to make America great again, and some of this is objective, right? We have data, we have science. Some of the politics really isn't as political anymore. We know that if taxes are too high, business suffers. We know that if you're Joe Biden and you kill 150 million chickens, you're going to have costlier eggs, right? There are some things that we don't really have to be geniuses to understand. And the good news is as the Republican Party expands, those policies, those common sense, make America great, keep America first policies should explode, right? We should really see those going. Again, the downside is that there's some that are a little more on the conservative side that we have to fight for, that we'll have to fight harder for, and we'll have to fight, have kind of a more pleasant, civil discussion inside the party about how we do that. But I think all in all, it's great. And I obviously support the Republican Party getting bigger. The thing that we have to do, though, is we just have to make sure that we don't lose sight of what we are at core, right? Small government, pro-business, pro-family, pro-defense, health freedom. I know that's that we got to remind the Republican Party that we are the freedom party, including health freedom. We're also the science party. We're the party that actually believed in truth and science. So it's really a big deal. We have to do this. It's wonderful that we're building. It's wonderful that we're getting these things done. But we're going to have to make sure that we continue to fight to ensure that the Republican Party reflects the base values of the GOP, which is MAGA. I mean, MAGA is what we are. We all want to see America made great again, but there's really going to be a bit of a learning curve for a lot of the Democrats and leftists that are coming to the Republican Party, who maybe they're sick of seeing the trannies, pushing that on kids. Maybe they're sick of, some of the race baiting and racist nonsense from the Democrats. We're going to have to explain to them, though, that no, these certain fiscal policies, small government, small this, small that, free speech, these are universal and core to the RNC. So, anyways, we'll get there. I'm excited. Trump's also getting rid of the DOE, apparently. We've got all sorts of corruption out there, and I've got some big stuff on mRNA and cancer we're going to talk about a little bit later on. But first, I want to do my daily grift. Please consider supporting us. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. $5 a week, $20 a month. Become a regular giver. We need regular donations. We need as many as possible. Please consider clicking. It keeps us in business. It keeps us going. It keeps us fighting. We got a lot to do and a lot to fight for. Your support makes a world of difference. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. And also TomRenz.com. And today, of course, go up here, shop, click on partners and affiliates, and come down to the Kingdom Fuel. My good friend Mark Sherwood is on today. Kingdom Fuel is a wonderful product, and he's got a lot of good things. One of the things that we're big on that we sell and that we're really pushing today is right back here, the Kingdom H2. That little device, you fill it up with water, you push a button, and it puts hydrogen in your water. It hydrogenates your water. Hydrogen is a wonderful product, a wonderful element, and what it does is it helps to reset your mitochondria, keep you strong. It's thought that mitochondrial dysfunction is related to cancer and all sorts of things. So if you keep those healthy, you have more energy, potentially have some things to help prevent cancer. It's a wonderful product. So make sure you're checking out the Kingdom H2. You can get there, tomrenz.com, click on our affiliates, go down to Kingdom Fuel. All right. My good friend Mark is here today, and so without further ado, how you doing, Mark?
Hey, I'm doing well, Tom. Happy Thursday, man. It's good to see you.
You too, you too. Hey, big news in well, before I get into that, did you watch Trump's speech?
Yeah, I watched some of it. I must say, just as a observer, I tried to go into it with like, well, what's he going to say? I kind of had an idea, but
Yeah.
the behavior that I observed, I was not happy
Oh,
with. I thought it was a bad look for our country. I thought it was a bad look around, and these are supposed to be adults. And the last thing I'll say about that is
supposed to be.
you can't. This is a general principle that I've learned in my life. You're unable to listen and unable to communicate when you're angry. And
Yeah.
so the anger that's being perpetuated out of Washington D.C. and not all one side, but probably most, it's not okay, and we're not going to get anything done like that.
No, it's a mess. And I mean, listen, I mean, some of this stuff is just, in my opinion, some of it's absolutely out of bounds. I mean, can you imagine, Mark? I mean, you and I we're both parents, we're both Christian. Can you imagine sitting arms crossed and not being willing to stand and clap for a 13-year-old boy who's surviving with potentially terminal brain cancer, who achieves a lifelong dream, ambition, becoming the Secret Service thing. I mean, making this little kid's dream come true, and these guys couldn't even stand up and clap for this guy. Can you imagine that?
No, I mean we've resorted to a bottomless level that I never thought I'd seen in our country, and that one right there was probably the well. When I saw that, I turned it off. I just tell you right now because I got so disgusted because I thought this is silly because it leader, whether you're a Democratic leader or a Republican leader, right, left, leaders try to build bridges of commonality.
Yeah.
And many times you can build a bridge of commonality in a situation just like that because this kid, he's not a Republican, Democrat, doesn't care either way. He's a kid.
Yeah, he
And
likes Trump because Trump recognized him, and all those sorts of things. And yeah,
well,
his dad likes MAGA, so yeah, but it's awesome. He's a baby.
totally. And then he's not even old enough to vote. And yet at the same time, we as people can't embrace that commonality for a young man to have life. Tom,
Yeah.
that's not okay. And I had a hard time with that one.
Well, I did too. I saw it over and over again. I mean, when you see Lincoln Riley's mom and sister there, and you see the tears streaming down their face, thinking about the death of their daughter, you see the mom. I can't remember. They renamed the nature preserve in Houston, or I think it's Houston, after her daughter, her child that was murdered. You see, the results of these policies that result. I mean, literally, we have the true human tragedy. But regardless of what you think about the policies, can't you at least stand in support and love and solidarity with the people who've lost so much?
I think so. I remember this, Tom, when I was running for office, 3 years ago. One thing I didn't learn was this, and I had learned about myself. I was pretty hard line in some areas, but when I listened to people that didn't agree with me,
Yeah,
when I had a conversation with them,
yeah,
I learned so much about where they stood, why they stood, and even about myself.
yeah,
And I built more, I saw more bridges built like that.
yeah.
And that's one of the takeaways I have, whether I won the campaign or lost the campaign. To me, that was an eternal win because I learned how to listen to people.
Attention listeners, with uncertainty in today's economic climate, securing your assets has never been more crucial. Beverly Hills Precious Metals is here to help you safeguard your wealth with gold and silver investments. Their experienced team, led by Andrew Sarcini, provides personalized service to ensure that you make the right choices for your future. Don't wait. Get there today. Go to bh-pm.com. That's bh-pm.com. Tell them Ren sent you and take the first step towards securing your financial security today.
People better.
Yeah.
And I'll take that and run with it all day long.
Well, one of the things that you get when you're in, kind of a situation, a public situation, you talk to a lot of people. And I mean, I'm not running for anything, but I talk to a lot of people, and I out advocating and fighting for my position. But one of the things that you do have happen, if you're willing, is I do try and listen to people from the other side. I don't always agree with them. And frequently we end up agreeing to disagree. But what I do find is that there's a lot of people who are completely on the other side of things that aren't necessarily evil people. Maybe they're misguided. They may be incorrect. But, the thing about it is, though, is that, I just can't get behind being unwilling to stand and support someone who's had that sort of personal tragedy. I think that's just humanity. That's just some basic levels of humanity. I think the Democrats have really collapsed on a level that's, I don't think it can resonate with people. I don't think voters are going to resonate with it. I think they're collapsing. I mean, they're pushed, listen, they can't read the room. Nobody is ever going to support trans and kids. That's not going to work.
Right.
It's never, they threw everything that they had at that issue to try and make it popular. And people, you just can't miss that you're destroying your children's lives. I mean, these sorts of things are out there. They're disastrous. Democrats going to have to figure out what's going on here, or they're just going to be, they're going to be gone entirely, to be honest.
Our conscience has been seared. When you have no conscience like that, Tom, and you can't feel things, I'm telling you, I know this from even my law enforcement days, you become more and more sociopathic. Yeah. And in that sociopathic concept, you don't feel pain. You don't feel bad for anybody. You're so stuck in yourself. You don't know what evil is anymore. You don't know what darkness is anymore. And that's a sad place to be. And that's what I'm seeing from some of our elected officials now in Washington specifically, and that's an alarm bell for me for our country right there.
Yeah, it's a little rough. We got some work to do. So let's shift gears. Topic of the day. So we've got Bobby and measles. Bobby and measles. This is something. So Bobby comes out, and there's an op-ed that comes out in Fox News. And he has pleasant things to say about MMR, which I'm not an expert on MMR. I started researching properly, and it looks like an absolute disaster, a complete debacle to me, like every other vaccine. In fact, when I found that there have been more deaths from the vaccine than from measles over the last, however many years, it kind of raised some alarms to me. But let's start out with this. What do you know? What do you know about the MMR? What do you think about that?
Well, I question the viability of any vaccines from the standpoint of just simply this. I mean, you're taking something to introduce to the body in this concept, a virus that the body is supposed to adjust to. Well, having said in itself, you have to question the idea that every human being is different and the way they respond to things is different. So therefore, you can't assume the same response in anyone. So I think that's one problem with this. I think the second problem is that in our current landscape of our society, we have bombarded our society with standard American Western diet, Western lifestyle, which has weakened our terrain. Therefore, the ability of those vaccines, even if they did work in one person, that validity would be less and less and less because you have a weakened immune system that you're introducing something to you want your immune system to respond to. And then I think the third thing behind this is that I get what he's doing. He's trying to soften his language a little bit, but you can't soften it to the point where it is compromising. We need to give the full, like you just said, how many vaccine direct deaths have been caused by that vaccine? Put it out there. Just put it out there. Let people see it. And then go out there and say how many non-vaccinated persons have died from measles. Not with measles, died from measles. So this is just information. And so I'm hoping that there's more forthcoming information and clarity and transparency like that so that people can make a better decision on these things. Because from a global standpoint, this is my overall point. We have become a society, and I think that COVID is starting to unwind this. It did. We became a society that was vaccine happy, and that's all we were
Yeah.
doing. And it became so bad and so monetized that now, because of the embeddedness of the money power grab that is that, it's a little bit harder to unwind today than it would have been 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah, no question. I don't think there's any question about that. Now, let me ask, when we look at these MMR vaccines in particular. So when I was a kid, I mean, I had chicken pox. I don't remember I don't remember having measles. I suppose I could have. I mean, nobody cared. Right? Literally nobody. I mean, so what? Oh, you got chicken pox. Yep. Okay. Well, I guess you can stay home from school today. How long till you're not contagious? And that was pretty much it. I mean, so what? It's kind of like, it's like COVID. COVID was basically the common cold for most people. There were a few people it was serious for, but I mean, they were usually the elderly or the infirm who everything's serious for. But we start getting paranoid about these things like they're some sort of a big deal. They're not as big of a deal as they make them out to be. But the paranoia creates a real problem with it. But it also sells big pharma. So big pharma is happy to promote and to play on that paranoia. Realistically, Mark, I mean, you and Michelle take care of people. You keep people healthy, and that's what you do. Yeah, someone calls you and says, I got measles. Do you immediately send them to the ER and tell them they're going to die?
No, I think if I hear a parent say they've got measles, I'm going to say monitor the symptoms. That's what I'm going to say. Monitor the symptoms, and
not go to the ER and pray that you don't die.
Yeah, no, because like that's what happened during COVID, man. And but that's what's happening in society. We've forgotten how to manage self, or to better said, self-care. We don't think like that anymore as a whole. We don't think about, when you're not feeling well, just stay home, chill out, and go back to work when you're not running a fever. I mean, it's pretty common sense stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the way we approached it.
Kind of basic.
Yeah, we've approached it just like that in all this time, and especially even now with we've been asked about the measles thing, especially the outbreak that was noted in Texas, 120 some odd people, but our response to that is, well, 120 some odd people compared to billions, I don't know that that's a large scale thing.
Yeah.
So you try to reframe it to say, this is something we don't need to have fear about, because fear can weaken the immune system, as we all well know.
Yeah, well, 100 people is irrelevant statistically, completely. Yeah. It's just a non-thing. And then, the fact that they had one death. Now, I know the people who were involved in this, who I can say that I personally have spoken to the people, that they're in touch with the family, they're healthcare people, they have details. And so I can tell you that they gave this kid the MMR vaccine while he was sick. That's what killed him.
Yeah, it's fascinating when you are sick with a virus. And this is for any virus. Just people need to hear this. When you're sick with a virus, there are things that you can do, even let's give it the benefit of the doubt from a medicine standpoint, to alleviate some of the symptoms or deal with them. And even something as simple as a Tylenol or ibuprofen, that's a medicine, right? But you got to think about maybe fasting. That's a good thing to do, because when you fast, you activate autophagy and mitophagy. And so that helps a lot with the natural body's ability to sort of recognize and sort of destroy viruses. You keep people hydrated, and you sort of watch the temperature, but you don't want to let the temperature get out of control, but you don't want to suppress it. These are things that you should be doing. The worst thing to do in the middle of that is to antagonize the system with something else that's going to make it go worse.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm hearing they did. I mean, there's a lot of interesting details behind the scenes on this story. It's interesting that they played it up the way they did. A lot of falsehoods there. But I got to be honest with you, I would have really liked to have seen Bobby handle this a little bit differently. To me, Bobby's approach should have been radical transparency. Here's what we know about the MMR vaccine. Here's what we know about measles. Do what you got to do.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that from the standpoint of where he is, and I'm not there, so I don't. It's hard for me to walk in his shoes and Monday morning quarterbacking. But I think I would offer a suggestion in this. If you see this happening, you got to say, okay, great. We're going to look into this a little bit further, statistically, find out what's really going on. I appreciate you sharing the news reports with me. Let me get into that. Let me have my people check into this, and I'll respond back when I know more information. But I'm always concerned when somebody dies, period.
Share the science, get it out there, and then that's that, right? The real data, the real science. CDC has it, right? They've got it. He could get it. He's just got to order it. He's got to demand it. And if you don't get it, you fire someone, you get someone who will. Yeah. But that's how it's got to be done. I mean, you've got to have, Bobby needs to have an enforcer in there that's going to get something done. I don't know whether he's, some people are just too nice to be, and I don't know if that's Bobby or not. I mean, I don't know, but you got to bust some chops a little bit here and there and get some things done. So, Mark, I know we don't have you for much longer. I know you got to we were a little bit late getting started today, and all things are kind of a mess. But your H2 back there, man, I love this stuff. I love the hydrogenated water.
Yeah.
By the way, everybody, go to tomrenz.com, check out affiliates. Scroll down, there it is, shop, scroll down to affiliates, and there, Kingdom Fuel. Click it, you can get the Kingdom H2 right there. Wonderful product, and you need to use that. Resets the mitochondria, right?
Yeah, this is, everybody needs this, and there's a lot of data coming out recently that I can share with you today. I haven't shared any broadcast, but the molecular hydrogen in here that is the number one on the periodic table of elements because of its size, it does get into the mitochondria. And you mentioned clearly in the intro that mitochondrial dysfunction is a part and parcel of every single disease processes. So molecular hydrogen has the ability to turn the most aggressive disease causing and disease associated free radical, which is called hydroxyl radical, turns it into water, which is fascinating. They're also seeing now new data that's came about how this can reverse TBI, post-concussive issues, stroke issues, et cetera, in the brain, because you're turning off the intracellular inflammation. So I think, I know people might not like to hear this, so they might. Every human being needs one of these.
Hey everyone, are you ready to take charge of your health? The Brighteon store offers a variety of wellness products to help you achieve your health goals. From immune support to personal care, they have everything you need to stay healthy and vibrant. Visit brighteonstore.com. Tell them that Ren sent you, and check out all the fantastic range of products that they have today.
100%, because these little rechargeable things will last you years. But why wouldn't you want to supercharge your water? You got to have it to live, supercharge it so you can actually help it become something that assists the age management process and disease resiliency process.
100%. I love it. I use it. I got it right there. Can't miss it. So everybody check it out. Mark, thanks for being with us today, man. I appreciate it as always. Appreciate the time. Appreciate the insight.
Appreciate you, Tom. Take care of yourself, man.
Have a great day, man. Okay. All right, everybody. There's Mark Sherwood, one of the best guys I know. Just a good man, good friend. I got nothing but good thing to say about the Sherwoods. All right, let's hit a few other things. So rumor has it, and by rumor I mean numerous reports and his own words, Trump is planning to issue an executive order to abolish the Department of Education. Now, I'm going to make some predictions here. These are very, very important predictions that I think everybody should hear about because they will be right. So the report is that Trump is going to put out this executive order to eliminate Department of Education. This order, according to reports, is going, and based on what I'm seeing, is going to be lied about in the mainstream press on a profound level, and I want you to be ready for it. So let me explain what's going to happen. Trump doesn't have the legal authority to actually shut down the Department of Education. He can't eliminate it. Like legally, he can't say there's no more DOE. What he can do is the same thing he's done with some of these other agencies, like USAID. Now, I know that there's been some rulings on USAID, but what they haven't ruled against is the way that he has limited the scope of the agency. And that's because of his executive order and the way that he did his executive order. And it will be the same thing in this executive order. What he's going to do, the mainstream is going to say he shut down the Department of Education. What the reality is he is going to shut it down to the furthest extent he is allowed under the law. So reports on what he's actually going to do are a little bit different than what they're saying. So they're claiming Trump's going to shut down DOE. Okay, so again, legally, and Trump knows this. Trump's not an idiot. Trump has been very careful and very calculated about this stuff. He can't do that entirely. What he can do is he can eliminate everyone and anything that is not necessary under the law. And that's what I expect we will see in this executive order. Right now, this is critical to understand that the Department of Education is, they're the ones that coordinated all the trans stuff in the schools all across the country. They're the ones that funded all of these leftist indoctrination programs, DEI programs, all these things. The DOE is the most important propaganda tool in America. It's used to brainwash our kids. And instead of teaching our kids to think critically and to be smart and do this, they instead use it to brainwash. So if Trump shuts down that DOE, if DOE has to actually start just doing getting out of the way, letting the states do what they do. And if Trump further does what he, continues to push, no DEI funding, no this, no that, what the DOE does is it becomes a pass-through, right? They've got money, federal funds that they give to the kids. And realistically, Congress should shut it down. Now, Congress has to shut it down with the president. Ideally, and they're talking about a rescission package in the Senate. If that rescission package includes shutting down funding for the DOE, they actually could entirely close that organization. And they should. We don't need it. There's no value. The federal government has provided nothing of value through the DOE. It's not useful. And historically, that's not what schools were. Schools were, initially, there were no public schools. In fact, there are very limited rights to public education under the law. I mean, people think, well, you have a right to an education. No, not exactly. You have a limited right to it, right? There is no right to go to school. There's a right to go to school because the school is a public service offered by our federal government, but it's not. You have no constitutional right to be educated. That actually, this concept of schools initially in this country came from churches. In fact, churches and schools were the same thing for many, many years. So when our country started and up through the Civil War, there were almost no schools out there that weren't church schools. The churches had schools. The churches educated people, and that's how. And it was well understood that you couldn't just educate someone. Yeah, right now we say, I just want the schools reading, writing, and arithmetic. Teach that. Well, if you go back to the founding of this country, it was even more, right? It wasn't, hey, the school's just reading, writing, and arithmetic. If you go back to the founding of this country, our forefathers recognized that a crucial part of a child, growing up and being educated is learning to be a good person. Morality was taught in schools. The churches taught you to be a good man or woman, not just to be someone who could do math. Now, we need both. We need you to be good in the maths and the sciences and all these things, but we also need moral education. Well, we can't have that because our country now doesn't believe in morality. We were a Judeo-Christian nation as we were founded, and I don't care whether anybody likes that or not. We just were, right? You went to school at the church. The church taught you to be a good person and to do math. That's how it was. Now, we shifted around the Civil War. They said, hey, there's a need for public schools and everybody needs education. Now, I agree that everybody needs education, but the problem is that what we should have done was funded these schools in a parochial way, but they didn't want that because there was an opportunity for control. So the government started controlling schools all the way back in the late 1800s. Then, throughout the 20th century, it really became a thing, a propaganda machine, a propaganda tool. And the schools became something that were far more about propagandizing children than educating children. Well, this is a major, major issue, right? A major issue. And it's something that was done in a way that was insidious. It was known. And I don't know. Yeah, it really was. That's what DOE is. It's about controlling state level education so they can propagandize children. And nobody did it better than Obama, and Biden carried on the tradition, right? They transformed schools from education places to places where they're focusing on DOE or DIE. They were DEI, DIE, DEI, same thing. And we're absolutely just a disaster. Yeah. So now we have a situation where, a lot of parents are focusing on homeschooling and things like that. And you kind of compare that with, what's going on with the public schools, and it's easy to see. And there's ups and downs, right? So, my kids are not homeschooled. You do the homeschooling, there's ups and downs to that. And in fact, producer Andrea does the homeschooling, right? She homeschools her kids. Producer Andrea, are you here? Where are you at?
I'm here.
Are you here? We need to see you. You need to join us here. There
I'm
you
the
are.
little box or the big box?
However you want to do it. So here's the thing. You do the homeschooling, right?
Yes.
You pulled your kids out. Tell the story. You pulled your kids out because of the COVID nonsense. You go from there. Hey everyone, are you ready to simplify your healthcare experience? My Go-To Doc provides easy access to medical services, including virtual doctor visits and prescription refills, all from the comfort of your own home. Go to mygotodoc.com. That's mygotodoc.com. Tell them Ren sent you and explore their comprehensive healthcare solutions today.
Yes, but I mean, we had some issues even before the COVID nonsense, like in kindergarten. And I had a lot of friends that were teachers, actually. And we started seeing this a long time ago, some of the weird things they were teaching. They were like, in my friends, like continuing education, right? Like in the summer, they got to go to all these courses and seminars.
Yeah.
They were telling me there's some weird stuff coming down the ranks here, where they're teaching us some odd things of, the sexual stuff that they're wanting us to talk about and the gender study stuff. And then my youngest, when he was in kindergarten, he was overwhelmed with just the classroom size, right? There's 40 kids, they're running around screaming. I used to actually go into the classroom to help the teacher often and be there because it just seemed like insanity. And he was having a hard time learning. So then they started asking us to do, they gave us these tests, these questions to ask him. And I'm not joking. And I screenshotted all of this and saved it. Some of the questions for my 6-year-old were, if you saw a hitchhiker on the side of the road, would you pick them up? Now, I don't know why a question like that would have anything to do with a 6-year-old.
Well, your 6-year-old's driving?
Yeah. There were questions of him, like in the kitchen, like if you were using the microwave or this and that and the other thing. And I just halfway through it, my husband and I stopped and looked at each other and we said, what is going on here? This is so weird. And then when we brought it up to the principal, they said, just go through it the best you can. Ask him the questions and see how he answers. And we're like, what does this have to do with his focus and his inability to test well and things like that? So I just wanted to say that because we were already kind of not happy with what we were seeing going on at their school. There are some great teachers, of course, but the whole system seemed to be just falling apart.
Yeah, it's a
before
mess.
COVID. Yeah, before COVID. Then, because I was one of those parents that never thought that my kids had any other option but public school. I'm like, well, I have to work and they have to go to public school. That's just what you do. And then COVID hit and there was just no way I was going to let my kids wear masks. I knew right away how dangerous they were. And obviously just the mental effects of what was going on in the schools during COVID. They went through distance learning. They finished up that first year on that distance learning and I decided they're not going back. Yeah. And so we continue to homeschool now because honestly, once you start homeschooling, it's not for every parent. It's not for every family. But I always say with the internet and the programs we use now and how like the world is really at their fingertips, homeschooling's much easier than when we were kids. The homeschool families when we were kids were kind of like the weird families, right? A lot of times there was moral issues. They kind of seem like the Little House on the Prairie families when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And no knock on that now, because I now relate to that more than I ever thought I would. But, we had like encyclopedias, and we had to go to libraries, and we just didn't have the whole world in front of us on our laptops.
No.
So, I mean, homeschooling now is one of the coolest, funnest things we've ever done. We still talk about other little schools in our community that we might get involved in. And as my kids have gotten older, they might want to socialize. There's a lot of elements to going to a good school. But I can't imagine going to a public school right now with everything I'm seeing. There's some great private schools, and I wish there was more competition. I wish, so what Trump's doing is, again, it's going back to that economic free market thing. If we were to introduce fair competition, and really if parents understood, your government is giving the schools your tax dollars, about $17,000-ish, it varies from state to state, per child. And if that's not enough money for them to get a good education, so think of if you got vouchers. Yeah. I mean, most parents, if the money stayed with the child, I'm not talking about $17,000. If you gave them $5,000, that would give them the ability to use on a private school or an online school.
Yeah.
I mean, if we could do things to stop this kind of evil machine that it's turned into, and at least enforce a competition, parents out there don't feel like they have an option, because they really don't. They really don't.
Well, you feel like listen, I got to put my kid in school. Well, they go to this school because this is where I live, and that's all I got, right? That's your option.
And what are your options? Even me, I live in a relatively, populous area. I'm in Reno, Nevada. I'm not like in the middle of nowhere. And it's really hard for me to find good, Christian schools or private schools, we have options, but they're pretty far away, and it's not easy. Again, the public schools have captured our society into thinking that they're the only way, and that you're a weirdo or you're going to hurt your kids if you don't use the public school system. And that's just a lie.
Now, for me, and in our realm and our guys, we got a lot of good friends that do the homeschooling stuff like that. Now, for my family, my kids have always been in school. We did not do the homeschooling, and it won't work for my family. It just would not work. And there's a lot of reasons, and these are some things, and I just kind of want to talk about this for a minute, because, and I'm going to get into some other things. I got to get into some really important topics yet, but I think this is critical. When you're thinking about what to do with your kids, first thing you got to do is you don't have to send them to public school. There are options. There's grants, there's scholarships, and even if you're going to go to a private school, and that's what my kids do. I wouldn't let my kids go to public school for anything. I mean, we've got all sorts of issues, even in rural Ohio. So, my kids won't go to public, although there are some great public school teachers. I know them. I've got a cousin who's a great guy.
Well, and I would love to see the public school system improve, because our society really depends on it. So
we need it. When I
say I'm a homeschool mom, you'll still see me at the school board meetings. You will still see me fighting to clean up the public school system. If the public school system was better, I'd be there. I want it to improve.
Yeah, for sure. But it's, it's a long ways to go. But regardless, I think one of the things to consider, though, is if you're thinking about this, think about your family a little bit. Like I said, I'm a proponent of my kids being in school, because I need my kids to be able to work with other kids and to understand. And I think socialization and social and emotional IQ, those things develop over time. They only develop with exposure to other kids. Mm-hmm. And I am very active in my children's life. So for my family, and I understand, so producer Andrews had what she had, but she lives in a different place, different things, different this, that. So for me, though, for my family, it was very important for my kids to develop that social emotional IQ. I don't care about popularity or anything like that. I just want them to work with other people. So what we do is I want them exposed to some of these Fruit Loops out there. To a certain extent, because they live with me. I can teach them. I can say to them, son, what happened today? Oh, Dad, this crazy kid said this and this and this. Well, what do you think about that, son? And then I can help him to analyze it and to understand it. So what I'm doing then is I'm teaching my kid to deal with these issues he's going to have to deal with. And yes, now the school, my kids go to a great school. Now I'm very happy with it. They do a great job.
You guys have great schools that your kids go to.
We do.
We do. And that's another thing with the homeschooling. I agree with you 110%. One thing that we had to start doing pretty soon into the homeschooling is get them in sports and other things. Because we're behind screens all day. Our kids are playing video games. you do you have to make sure when you're homeschooling that you appreciate the importance of them getting out of the house, interacting with kids their age. And for my oldest, and he's only 14, getting a job. He's learning real life skills. He has to show up on time. He has to make his boss happy. So I've talked to a lot of homeschool families that have said, those are the elements you have to.
Attention all sleep lovers. MyPillow is your go-to source for premium sleep products. I don't get to sleep much, so when I do, I need to sleep well. That's why I use MyPillow products. Whether you need pillows, mattress toppers, or sheets, MyPillow has everything you need to ensure that when you finally get to go to bed, you sleep well. Don't wait. Visit mypillow.com today. Tell them Ren sent you and get exclusive discounts. Find out why Mike Lindell made $1 billion selling pillows. It ain't because he doesn't sell a good product.
Add that you wouldn't necessarily add or emphasize so much in public school because they're getting that, right? Your kids play sports through the school and things like that. I have to go out of my way to make sure that they're enrolled in sports.
100%. Well, and you know, and again, it's personal. I don't think there's a right or wrong way I think there's wrong ways to do it. You know, if you just put your kid in public school and ignore it, you're doing the wrong thing. But if you're involved in your kid's life, I think there's 100 right ways you can do it. And that's kind of what I'm talking about here. Like, I just want to kind of throw this out there because, you know, I know a lot of people that listen, a lot of people, we kind of go back and forth. We have public school, private school, homeschool, what I do. And I got a lot of diehard fans that absolutely love the homeschool. I mean, a lot of us do. And I get that. I get that for sure. 100%. I mean, and if you can do that, if that's something that you can make happen in your family and with your family, good for you. For us, for my family, you know, like I said, we've evaluated and we've waited, and I think the best way to go, they go to Catholic Jesuit school. Please don't message me about the Jesuits. I know the Pope is garbage. I know. But this is a great school. Yeah. They're good. They're teaching the kids good values. I'm actively involved. Believe me, they know my name, and they everybody throws up a little bit in their mouth when they see me walk in the door. I mean, you know, it's a good school. But anyways, they teach values and they teach Christianity as a practice, right? They teach the kids to live it. Men for others.
And our homeschool is a Christian homeschool, so Bible study's part of it. When we're talking about science and all of these different things, they blend the morals and all that, and I love that. But you know, before COVID, so COVID spurred my family to do
let's mention, because you just mentioned it's a Christian home. So producer Andrea and we're friends, so we know this. Yeah, her family, she participates in a structured program, right? So it's not when you say homeschool, and this is really important. If you're going to homeschool, there are schools that will provide you guidance, classes, online resources, online this, online that, and some of them are good. You know,
and some parents build their own, and I know some parents that are brilliant. I have a friend who is homeschooled, and she's just amazing. I actually worked with her. I met her, I think, when she was like 22, and I always talked to her family about their homeschooling because at the time I was getting excited about it. And her dad was a professor in a past life, right? So he was great at teaching his kids history. He was a history buff. Her mom was a musician, so she was playing piano at a young age. Every family is different, so they bought their own books and built their own programs. But before COVID, there wasn't as many options because there wasn't as high of demand. There are so many. I mean, I'm curious now with the numbers. It seems like half the people I talk to now are homeschooling, but it's because we have these options. And really, I think the biggest thing is our society breaking down the stigma and parents understanding that they have options and that their kids aren't going to be weird or be behind by homeschooling. But every family deserves, just like when you're going out to find a pediatrician or not have a pediatrician or all the options out there for everything, every family deserves to be able to do what's right for their family without a stigma that society says this is the only way. I mean, the reason why people are leaving public schools in droves is because it has never done our society good. From the inception of the government public education, we've seen nothing but a deterioration of our society.
This is a really neat comment. I've never really thought about it. Look at this. This is kind of AJ Lincoln says, I hope 47 pays homeschooling parents,
Yeah.
gives them a break. That's kind of an
Yes.
interesting thing. You know,
Well,
what if they,
we've talked
wherever
about
you,
vouchers. Yeah.
yeah, if
So
the vouchers are going to follow you, maybe they follow
Yes,
you
yeah.
everywhere, including to homeschool. That's kind of an
Well,
interesting
yes,
thought.
that's the idea, is these universal vouchers that follow you anywhere, that follow the student, because the taxpayers save a ton of money on homeschool parents. So
Yeah.
if you think of it, my kids in my area, it's $17,000 per kid that they're not spending, right?
Yeah.
I'm spending for my private school, my homeschool, everything. So you save a ton of money if you incentivize homeschoolers. There's a reason, obviously, that they don't want us to homeschool, because they want to have control. They don't want parents to have control. But the good point there is that Trump would absolutely be the president to make that happen.
That's kind of a cool idea. I've never really thought about that, but that's a pretty cool concept. You know, I mean, if they did something like that, I think that would be an interesting thing.
Some
Yeah,
states have done some of that before. It's never been like follow the student and universal. There's always kind of like loopholes, like you say.
yeah.
But I mean, Trump would absolutely be the guy to make that happen if we could just make it more of a free market. But yeah, homeschooling should be incentivized, because it's better for everyone.
100%. Well, anyways, I think this is an important and a fascinating thing. It's something that we ought to be talking more about. I do think that there's some great options for homeschool parents. I think that, to me, I think when you see Christian universities like Liberty and others that are offering homeschool programs and guidance and, legit things that you can do where you can get your kids through their grades and this, that, and other. I also think, so for me, and I know some people are going to argue with me about this, I think that standards in education are important. Let me explain what I mean by that. So one of the things that I think that when I was looking at, do we want to homeschool, do we not? And I did look at it. And one of the problems I have is that it's very hard to ensure standards, right? So if my kid is going to be at a fourth grade level, what does that mean? Right now, the standards that we have nationally suck. They're garbage. And you don't have to tell me. I know. I understand that it's a mess. But I also know that they do exist. They are real. They do exist. And they exist in a pretty a very legitimate way, right? I mean, they're solid. So if you've I don't know, as you're looking at this, as you're thinking about this, you've got to understand that these standards, they're important marks, they're important milestones, they're important this, important that, and they really do help to determine where your kid's at. And the reason I think this is valid is when your kid graduates and goes into the workforce, as a boss, I look at people and I assume that if you've graduated high school, you have a high school education. Now, I understand that in America, that means you're probably dumber than a brick.
In America, you have a second grade education.
You've got the same dumb as a brick high school education as everybody else. That's important because I need to know what I'm hiring, right? So if your kid didn't have the same type of education, I don't know what I'm hiring, right? I have no idea. And half the reason that you look at school, you look at these academic things, half the reason that you do that is that you need to make sure that your kid is meeting a standard. What is that standard? Is your kid there? If I don't know what I'm hiring, it's really hard to deal with. And so I think that's a very important aspect of this. I think it's
an interesting thing to just go off of what you just said is one thing I've done a lot of research on is when my kids want to go to college, what does that mean depending on the curriculum I'm doing in homeschooling? Because if you're building your own curriculum, most states you need to keep records and things like that. It's always good to keep records. And most parents obviously, follow certain guidelines and programs to make sure that their kids are leveling up. But it's very broad, right, when you're homeschooling, like what you're saying. But what's interesting is when homeschool kids apply to college, oftentimes they're favored in the admissions when they're going through these applications. They know that there's just an understanding that the homeschool kids are well prepared. And it's hard to define in black and white. It's not because they've passed this and this and this test or, they got their, high school diploma. It's like I've seen the the research behind it. Homeschool kids get accepted quickly and easily and are preferred a lot of times in college applications because they're oftentimes above and beyond. Because if you have a one-on-one teacher, whether it be with a parent or a tutor, how far better are you going to be than a child who's been in a classroom with 40 other kids and an overwhelmed, underpaid teacher in a public school system? I mean, on average, they're just...
Everybody, are you ready to enhance your food security in these uncertain times? RensWholeCows.com provides high-quality beef products ideal for long-term storage and emergency preparedness. With beef under attack in America, it's crucial to have a trusted source like RensWholeCows.com. Visit the website today and secure your food supply.
They're better and more prepared for life than the public school systems when it comes to their education level for the college applications.
Yeah, it's if it's done well. If it's done well.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. I want to hit. I got a couple little things I want to hit, and I want to get into a teaser because we're not going to get into all the details of this story today, but I want to kind of touch on something. So, let's. I wanted to start out with a little reminder of the success stories of mRNA. And I say that with every bit of sarcastic, snarly voice that I can possibly manage, because it's absolute garbage. mRNA is a disaster. It's an established disaster. It's a known disaster. And yet we continue to push it. Now, for those of you that have been under a rock, let me remind you a little bit of the mRNA debacle that we're living under. So going back to the mid-2010s, the COVID mRNA was developed and put on a shelf. And I know that because I have documents that prove that. Now, it's denied by the mainstream, but they can deny it all they want. I have the evidence. I can show it. I've got military medical records showing that they were testing the mRNA Moderna COVID-19 vaccines on soldiers going back to the mid-2010s. Okay, so we know this is a thing. We know that they were liars. We know that they're crooks, and that's not a surprise. So let's talk about some real information. And by the way, if you doubt me, well, let me remind you of this. Moderna's CEO, Stefan Bancel, stated in an interview that the company had manufactured either millions or hundreds of thousands of doses in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
How would they have done that if it didn't exist?
Didn't he say that at a Davos?
Yes, he said it. He said it on a stage at Davos at World Economic Forum. I mean, he openly just said, "Yeah, well, we had hundreds of thousands of doses then, but you had to ramp up." You did. Why'd you have hundreds of thousands of doses of something that didn't exist? So understand that everything about this is a fraud. Okay, Trump was lied to. He was manipulated. Operation Warp Speed was not what they said it was. They told him that he was getting rid of all these hurdles so they could invent this. They didn't invent it. It was sitting on a shelf. They lied. That's all about stealing the election from Trump in 2020. So anyways.
They had tested it and saw that it was disastrous in their trials and their tests, but they went along with it anyway.
Yeah, so they're hell-bent on it. Now, in case you doubt me, let me further remind you that I believe it's 2016, but I may have that off. Moderna got a patent, and that patent was on a 19 nucleotide genetic sequence. It turns out that identical sequence just happened to be in SARS-CoV-2.
Wow.
Now you say, well, so what? I mean, that could happen, right? Well, let me answer. Well, I've got a response for that. There was a peer-reviewed study published, and mind you, peer-reviewed. This is the science, folks. If you doubt the science, you must be a communist psychopath. You can't argue with the science, right? So it was a peer-reviewed study that looked at this, right? And they said, well, what are the odds that this 19 nucleotide sequence would occur both in SARS-CoV-2 and in Moderna's vaccine, or Moderna's patent. And it turns out that the odds or probability of that being a random thing are less than 1 in 8 trillion with a T, like our budget deficit. Trillion. So, yeah, I mean, sure, all a coincidence, right? And yeah, these guys have not stopped lying to us for 5 years. And I keep saying to you, when do you trust a liar? And I'm going to keep saying, when do you trust a liar? Because the answer is you don't, unless you're an idiot. Okay? Unfortunately, we got a lot of idiots. Hello, Democrat Party. So we look at this, and it's quite clear that these people have been lying. And by the way, it's interesting because Moderna did not report some of this information in their applications for their COVID vaccines, which may well have been a violation under 21 CFR 312.23. Just saying. Seems like they might have left some stuff out. But hey, Bobby, are you listening? Anybody? So there, we see all this nonsense occurring. Here's the deal, folks. We're now moving into this new realm where we're going to try and have mRNA vaccines for cancer. Now, I've laid out in no uncertain terms and in multiple places all the evidence that the current mRNA vaccines are causing cancer. There's right down to including the FDA documents that say that cancer is probably going to be a side effect. Right? So I've laid all this out extensively. And yet, despite that, we keep marching forward with mRNA cancer vaccines. Super. Okay. So I've got an update on that. This handy dandy little document, JP Morgan Health Conference. You know what this is? BioNTech. That's Pfizer's partner. Anthony Bourla, the fine gentleman, great businessman, makes a lot of money off of murdering people, in my opinion. So what do we got here? We have these little things going on. And what this is about is their mRNA cancer cures that they're calling vaccines. Now, let me ask you something. Why is it that here you see that these are called mRNA cancer immunotherapies? Here they're talking about it as a curative approach. Here you're talking about immunotherapy. Here you're talking about all this stuff, right? You go through here. And yet we are trying to suggest, as you go through this, that these mRNA cancer immunotherapies, are somehow vaccines. Here you see vaccines. Well, wait a second. I thought they were immunotherapies. How can they be vaccines if they're immunotherapies? They aren't vaccines. They were never going to be vaccines. They were always therapeutics, gene therapeutics. They are gene therapies. That is what mRNA is. And now we have a whole new line of gene therapies that they're building to poison us and kill us if we make more cancer problems. Folks, I'm going to be digging into this. You're going to be getting a lot of news in the coming days. But trust me when I tell you, this is going to be a disaster. And unless someone finds the political courage to be honest about this, we're going to have some issues. So we'll see what we can do. We'll be doing a lot more on this coming up. Pay attention. Lots happening. Make sure you're giving to givesendgo.com/renslaw. We need your support. Givesendgo.com/renslaw. Also go to TomRens.com, shop our affiliates, check out our shop, support us. Thank you for everything you're doing, and we will be back very soon.